Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. This is Coach Drew and Big Nick. Yup.
Yeah, yup.
We are covering Week 5 now. It is finally getting to the time when conference games matter. As we said before, wrapping around the news, Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State historical head coach, has been fired and let go, Nick. Isn't that sad?
Yes, and in case you're not aware, Coach Gundy is the coach who gave us the famous, "I'm a man, I'm 40, I'm not a kid" quote. We'll forever be thankful for that from Coach Gundy and his amazing mullet that he had for quite some time and all the success he had with the Cowboys. That's not a program that's had a ton of consistent football success, so sorry to see him let go.
As they said, they want to make sure that mullet stays on the statue there. We also have breaking news from Oklahoma in the same state. Notre, the quarterback for Oklahoma, is going to be out for a month. Now, they did get good wins against Michigan and Auburn this past weekend, but significant lose is going to be impacted on the college football playoffs. I recently do believe that they're one of the teams that could possibly sneak into the SEC championship, but now with Mater out for an extended period of time, that dampens their lead, doesn't it, Nick?
Yeah, I've watched Oklahoma, not a ton because they're not part of the Midwest Blitz main coverage, but I've heard some analysts this week who I respect that said that Oklahoma's offense might not run very well at all without him because he was a big part of their running game and their passing game. I personally think he's been the best quarterback in the country this year, so hopefully he's back in a month from the hand surgery that he had, and we get to see him play again this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge blow to Oklahoma. Another thing that we want to talk about, Xavier Scott from Illinois has been officially announced he's going to be out the whole year. But as there's been some negative news in the Midwest Blitz, we also have some positive news. Nick, don't you want to cover the suit that just happened at IU?
So the leading tackler for the Indiana Hoosiers right now is Louis Moore, and he won his injunction lawsuit against the NCAA today and will be eligible to play for the rest of the season, which is big news for the Hoosiers because, in my opinion, as an IU fan, I think they only have 3 legitimate safeties that can play at this point in the season, and him being the leading tackler, pretty big win for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that covers what we got some storylines before we're heading into the games we're covering for Week 5. We're going to start off the gate. We're going to go to Rutgers visiting Minnesota. Minnesota on the road. It's going to be a noon kickoff Eastern on the Big Ten Network. The over-under is 51.5. This is according to Wednesday morning. And also, Rutgers has a spread of plus 4.5. So Minnesota has to cover by at least another touchdown. Me and Nick were talking about this pregame. Go ahead, Nick. Give us our insight here.
So Rutgers goes to Gopherland to face PJ Fleck in the aforementioned Minnesota Golden Gophers. So Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis returns to his former school and is having a great year for Rutgers. I think so far Rutgers' offense has been overperforming compared to expectations. Kaliakmanis has been really good every time I've watched him. So Darius Taylor from Minnesota is expected to return from a hamstring injury. I believe they had a bye week last week. They lost at Cal without him when he was hurt. Me and Drew were hypothesizing that maybe he's been injured since a few weeks ago. That's pure conjecture on our part. I had a pick I was going to give you, Gophers money line, if Taylor plays. They say he's going to play, but I guess we'll find out on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And why we're bringing that up is because Taylor has zero touchdowns on the season, 33 carries, 161 yards. I mean, this guy is a beast to mess with. This is why we picked Minnesota early. Well, Nick specifically picked Minnesota early. They lost to Cal. That's not good for them. Minnesota's going to need to pick up ground here. Rutgers also 3-1. They're 0-1 in the Big Ten as they lost, I believe it was last week. Let me just double check that real quick. Yeah, they lost last week to Iowa. I figured because we just covered that game. as we continue on to the season, there's a lot of Big Ten team games, so sometimes our brains might get fuzzy for a second. But yeah, even ESPN Analytics doesn't know what to say here. They're leaning 54.8% Minnesota, so it's about split even right there. Even though the spread is covered by them, this is going to be a fun matchup to watch if you got an extra TV to put on for sure.
Yeah.
But again, this is a team that's middle of the pack right now, continuing to battle in the Big Ten, trying to get to that top-notch speed. Isn't that right, Nick?
I think Minnesota's freshman quarterback has a chance to have a good game against Rutgers, just like our boy Parker Navarro from Ohio did earlier in the season. Rutgers' defense has underperformed, so Minnesota might still be able to win that game, but going into it without Darius Taylor is a huge loss for the Gophers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually just mentioned the next game we're going to be covering with our favorite from the MAC, Parker Navarro. Now, folks, we've been covering the MAC, and we're still going to do our MACtion and give you the best coverage as the raccoon runs across the field, the scoreboard on fire. I'm not exactly giving the exact quote, but that was the tweet that talks about MACtion and how, like, it's true Midwestern football. I do want to say this, guys. There might not be a MAC team that makes it to the college football finals, right? Me and Nick were talking about this, but we're going to follow all the teams to the end for sure.
So Bowling Green's plus 10 going into Ohio, and Pro Football Focus has Bowling Green as the 104th best pass defense in the nation. Now, you can give them athletes at Pro Football Focus all the credit you want or not give them credit, but that is one metric to look off of. And then being 104 in pass coverage against 3 out of 4 of their opponents have been pretty weak. And Parker Navarro has been pretty reliable this year. I mean, we think he's going to be an NFL quarterback, maybe in a backup role, maybe not. We'll see what happens in the draft next spring. But Navarro and the Bobcats covered our bet, our first half point spread bet, and our total games point spread bet against the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're going to do it again. They're going to do it again at home. And the line had shifted to 9.5. I got the Bobcats minus 9.5 at home. I think Navarro's going to light up this Bowling Green defense, and the Bowling Green offense has been kind of middle of the road in my opinion. So I got Bobcats covering.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, even though Bowling Green has Pudge the cat, they have Bowling Green has their little mascot with them. I don't think that's going to play a factor in this game, as I think the Bobcats eat the little cats and take care of them for sure at home. Nick's giving me a look. I don't think he knows about Pudge, but I'll definitely add a pic if I can on the YouTube channel so you can see who he is. He's their mascot, you know.
He's
They've
like
been having hard practices, so they need an emotional support animal.
a recently adopted mascot.
Yeah, he's the locker room mascot. Well, we have a big battle in Michigan, don't we, Nick?
Well, in resumption of our MACtion coverage, we got Eastern Michigan plus 6 at Central Michigan. This is the battle for the Michigan MAC trophy. In our coverage of MAC football, we would have been remiss not to cover this. So this is an offense versus defense matchup. Central Michigan's had a strong defense all year, and Eastern Michigan has had a strong offense. So that might be an interesting one to put on a side TV on Saturday also. Always fun to watch rivalry games, even if it's two schools I've never heard of, which obviously we know all the MAC teams here on the Midwest Blitz, but you never know what's going to happen in a rivalry game.
Well, yeah, there's definitely going to be points put on the board. I mean, anytime two MAC schools goes against each other, I mean, it's going to be high scoring. ESPN Analytics, again, has a split 50-50%. This game's going to be at noon not noon Eastern, 1 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. I'm looking forward to this game just to see who's going to come out. I think this is going to give you a leg up with possibly being one of the last teams to play in the MAC championship. We know Buffalo, has a loss to Troy. Western Michigan has a conference win. I mean, this is all up in the air, and this is where it starts this week in this battle in Michigan for sure. Do you want to cover the next one? Ohio State versus Washington?
I sure do. So, number 1, Ohio State travels to Washington. The Huskies are plus 7.5. This is the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Ohio State has 19 straight road wins versus unranked opponents. Washington has 22 straight home wins. And I want to add to this Ohio State versus unranked opponents that Washington is probably underrated at this point. They have not played a tough schedule, but their offense has shown dynamic playmakers at quarterback, at running back, and at wide receiver with Denzel Boston at receiver. And Damon Williams at quarterback has met and exceeded expectations so far. I think he's 74% passing. The Huskies offense has had explosive plays in the offense in the passing game and in the running game. So Ohio State's defense really needs to be on alert going on the road. This is the first road game for Julian Sayin, who's been fantastic this year. But dude, first road games for young quarterbacks has been a theme that we've covered this season so far in the Midwest Blitz. So I wouldn't take anything for granted here. I think that Washington's defense in their first big test of the year has to really force the Buckeyes to beat you running the ball, because Ohio State has not produced huge numbers in the running game so far, even against lesser opponents. So I think that this is a really, really dangerous game for Ohio State going on the road. And somebody said Husky Stadium, it's not the biggest stadium, but the way it's constructed and as excited as their fans get during home games, this is a really hard road environment for Ohio State to go into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not more your traditional. I'm actually looking at some photos. I was curious. I keep trying to visualize what Washington's Husky Stadium looks like, and it is very unique. It doesn't have that normal like round dome shape. It's kind of like open field concept.
It's like
But
high walls on the sides, I think.
yeah, and it is. And I've watched film. I've been watching film about this. Very interesting game. If Nick didn't mention it, again, I'm just going to reiterate it. 22 straight home games that they've won, the Huskies have. And that, I mean, Julian Super Saiyan goes on the road for the first time in his career. This is a game where you're looking at it. Now, I told Nick earlier, I was, some people come to me for NFL picks too as well. And the Packers, if you watch the Packers at home this season, everybody thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, they went to play the Browns, who have many struggles this year, and they lost on the road. So teams do struggle on the road. They even struggle on a professional level. This is definitely going to be an interesting game if you have time, because me and Nick have all the time in the world on Saturday. We're definitely watching it. Tune in at 3:30 Eastern time. It's going to be on CBS. Anything else you want to add to this game, Nick?
Jonah Coleman's got 9 touchdowns for the Huskies. He's been one of the best running backs in the country if you watch him on film. He's definitely loaded for bear and is healthy, unlike Darius Taylor that we talked about earlier. Ohio State might have their hands full here. And so if you didn't have this on your list of games to be interested in and watch on Saturday, I'd definitely turn it on, because I think Washington's offense can put up some fireworks. With Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles on the Ohio State defense, obviously you've got the talent for Ohio State, but being a road game, it could get hairy there.
It definitely can, especially because this is one of the lowest games, ranked opponent, especially being number 1, going against unranked. The spread is one of the lowest it's been in years. That's also another fun tidbit. Let's head over to LSU versus Ole Miss, Nick.
So we had the unstoppable object versus the immovable force in the Ohio State-Washington game. This is the object that doesn't move versus the object that doesn't stop anybody as it relates to LSU's run game, which has been kind of non-existent against an Ole Miss defensive front seven that doesn't stop the run. So I guess in these matchups, typically, when you've got a defense that doesn't stop the run and a team that has struggled to run, that's usually the breakout game for the offensive team. So LSU might have their best rushing performance of the week, or it might have their best performance of the year this week against Ole Miss. LSU's got a great secondary, and Ole Miss has not been their typical slinging around the yard type of team. So this is going to be a weird game to watch, potentially, not what you're expecting to watch a Lane Kiffin team that is running more than they're passing compared to the past. I think I heard somewhere this stat might not be exact, but Nussmeier's last game for LSU, He was like 30 of 35 or 30 of 36, and his receivers had 5 drops in the games. LSU's offense is struggling. Bayou Brian will not want to answer any questions about it if it continues. Nussmeier back on track, though, in a 30 out of 36 performance. We'll see what happens. Could be a shit show.
Well, yeah, and Ole Miss, too, right now is in the driver's seat in the SEC as they actually have 2 victories in the conference. LSU's right behind them with 1, but there's other teams that also at least have a conference win and are also undefeated in the SEC.
If you're
It's
in the
definitely going to
drive,
be interesting.
if you're in the driver's seat and you can't stop the run and you're in the SEC, how long do you stay in the driver's seat, Drew? I'm going to say
probably 1 lap.
Not for long.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, at least they're there, you know. They could be South Carolina, who has 2 conference losses. So, and again, this one is going to be interesting too as well, like cuz Nussmeier, he's trying to win the Heisman, so like you said with the offense with the LSU, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Well, there's another game we want to cover in the SEC before we get back to the Midwest where we belong. There's Auburn versus Texas A&M. Now, Auburn just lost last week to Oklahoma, and Texas A&M is also 3-0. They just had a bye. This was going to be a bigger game if Auburn would have won last week, but now they're unranked. Texas A&M is trying to protect their home against Auburn, which, to be honest, they're not a bad team, you know? 1 loss does not define your season. Isn't that right, Nick?
No, not by any stretch. I think Auburn's going to come out desperate to get a win after, I believe, their first SEC game was the loss at Oklahoma, like you just said. Here's a question. So A&M had a bye after their win at Notre Dame 2 weeks ago. So you say the bye week is an advantage for the coaching staff and for the players to get to rest, get to extra time, game planning. But is A&M going to be fat and happy playing a team that just lost? There's a chance for a letdown there. Auburn's more of a power run team. So if A&M can hold up against the run game, they have a good chance to win at home. The PFF numbers show that Craver for A&M is the highest graded receiver in the country. I think that him and Marcel Reed might feast against the Auburn defense. No offense to the Auburn defense, but I have a lot of faith in Marcel Reed and Mario Craver after what I've seen out of them so far.
Yeah, and according to ESPN's analytics, Texas A&M is favored 2-1 against Auburn. So, I mean, those are the stats going there. Well, back to the land of Lincoln, we got to cover USC versus Illinois. Illinois is licking their wounds as they hop back over, wobble, crawl back to Illinois from Indiana. That was a crazy game. USC is flying high as they had to win the Trojan War again, as they're coming from the West Coast to back to the Midwest. Now, this game is at noon Eastern time. Nick, what was that one tidbit you wanted to mention about this game being so early?
So number 21 USC, who has looked good so far against inferior competition, has to travel 2 time zones to play this game. So it'll be 11 a.m. USC time for this kickoff. And traditionally, even going back to old school NFL statistics, West Coast teams that travel east for early kickoffs tend to underperform. So that's something to keep an eye on. Illinois plus 7.5. This is a national TV game on Fox. Joel Klatt will be there. Look, Illinois has to lick their wounds up front on both sides of the ball. Their performance against Indiana was obviously not what they wanted. They were embarrassed. I think this Illinois team is better up front on both sides of the ball than what they looked against the Hoosiers. I think the Hoosiers are better than we thought they were. I think that almost everybody in the country agrees with that right now. Illinois is capable of playing better, and their offensive line better get it together, dust themselves off, and come out here ready for a fist fight, because if they don't, Illinois is not going to out-athlete USC. I thought in our preseason preview of this game that Illinois would come in and be able to kind of hammer USC up front. I think the sad thing after what happened to Illinois last week is that this should be a game that everyone in the country is talking about. It should be a fun game still, in my opinion, but everybody's discounting Illinois now, which hopefully, if you're the Illini, makes you dangerous this week because USC has beat up on jack shit nobody so far. I did not have faith in this USC team coming into the season. We're going to see what happens. The PFF numbers show that USC, although their rushing numbers by yardage have been good, their pass blocking grades have not been great. And Illinois' defensive score, even after they got absolutely pounded by Indiana, are some of the best in the country. So Illinois has to come out and shut the run down to make things hard on Maava. If Maava, who has had a brilliant year through the air so far with 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and no interceptions, if they allow Maava to stay in down and distance manageable situations, Illinois is going to get their ass kicked again. They have to come out up front and control the line of scrimmage, especially on defense. And the same thing on offense. This is supposed to be, and I think that Illinois does have a great offensive line. They have to come out and play like it this week. They cannot allow Altmaier to get harassed the way he did last week when he was sacked 7 times versus the Hoosiers and pressured who knows how many times. Illinois, you are better than this up front. I believe in you. I want you to come out and kick some Trojan ass this weekend. I just wish that this game was timed differently because people are not giving Illinois a chance. I'm still giving them a chance. I want to take Illinois at home plus 7.5, but trust is kind of lost here right now, Coach Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. The analytics, because Sig decided to blow up the scoreboard. Now, he played football correctly. There's no intuition about what he did wrong there. But the analytics are now scared with that and now giving USC an 80% chance to win. I mean, it is scary. Aldemeyer and the boys, they're not playing offense well. The offensive line that we previewed earlier in the season is supposed to be elite, and they're not. Mailava is going to come in there and he's going to light it up, passing the ball to Lemon, and this USC team is going to score a lot of points. It's up to Illinois to respond in Champaign. Now, if there was one coach I had to pick in the Big Ten that would get punched in the face and make and make an adjustment, it's Brett Bielema. Okay, Brett Bielema was getting bullied by Sig on national TV. That did happen. And like you said, Nick, there was a moment where he looked up and then he crashed down and he realized there's nothing he can do. Unfortunately, it's not a boxing match or a UFC match where the ref can just call it after the other team's getting brutally murdered. No, Illinois had to play the rest of the game and lick their wounds, and now they have to stop the Trojans. So
let's say something in Illinois' favor here, and it's about the USC defense. This is a defense that has a lot of recruiting stars, which on the Midwest Blitz, we always say recruiting stars don't sack quarterbacks and recruiting stars don't score touchdowns. This USC defense, I think, still has some questionable tackling. Are they going to come out against, hopefully, an aggressive and disciplined front, an offensive line from Illinois, and have good gap discipline and still be able to play aggressive and tackle well? And that's my question coming into the game, assuming that Illinois comes out ready to cook some pancakes like we thought they would at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is another team in the Midwest that we want to make sure that we cover, and hopefully they do well. Notre Dame travels to the SEC as they play Arkansas in a matchup that will be at noon at Razorback Stadium. Me and Nick have been analyzing this game, and I'm going to let Nick go first, and then I'll say my piece.
So the $1 million question that every Notre Dame fan has on their mind is, can the Irish run the table and keep their college football playoff hopes alive? I mean, the other question might be about the defensive coordinator, but we'll get to that here in a second. Well, Arkansas comes in 2-2, but has one of the best passing offenses in America. Quarterback Talon Green threw for 3,100 yards and 15 touchdowns last year, which is pretty good. He's on pace to shatter those numbers this year. After 4 games, he's got 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns and 360 rushing yards. Their run game outside of him has been okay. I don't want to say it's terrible. It's not great. Notre Dame's defensive front has to stifle the Arkansas running game. And the reason I say that is Taylon Green might be a more accurate version of Marcel Reed, who absolutely torched them for the Aggies on deep throws. This kid can make all the same throws. And this Arkansas offense does a lot of the same things conceptually with 4 and 5 wide receiver sets that Notre Dame struggled with against Miami. And I would say we've moved on from Miami because Notre Dame's defense has had more time to improve and gel within their system. But if you watch the Purdue game last week, Notre Dame's passing defense hasn't advanced or gotten any better since the Miami game against a Purdue team who is far less talented and played really well. Shout out to the Boilers for playing well against Notre Dame. If Chris Ash hasn't patched some of the holes in this defense, look out, because this Arkansas passing attack is designed to exploit all of the weaknesses that Notre Dame has put on film this year. And if Notre Dame can't pressure with 4 up front this week, with a 4-man rush, they better have a blitz dialed up, or you're going to have another white-knuckle affair against a team that Notre Dame should be able to beat easily. But the only reason that we're even talking about this game being close is because the defensive play calling and concept has been absolutely terrible this year. Notre Dame's offense should be fine. They've already played a road game with freshman quarterback C.J. Carr. He showed composure and ability to make plays. If they feed the run game first and then feed the ball to Fields and Faison and Reardon in the passing game as a secondary part of the offense, they're going to light this Arkansas defense up, or they have the absolute potential to. The problem is you might get into a shootout with Arkansas because Arkansas can really throw the ball and Notre Dame can't defend the pass. The last 2 games, the Arkansas defense has given up 400 rushing yards and 560 passing yards. Notre Dame's offense should feast against this Arkansas defense, but I just shudder to see what the defense looks like against another athletic quarterback who can move around and outside of the pocket and make throws on the run.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give you some stats real quick, Nick, to back up your argument of why this defense sucks, that if you need it anymore. Overall, 397 yards per game. That's 100th in the FBS. The passing is 289.3 yards per game. That's 132nd. I don't know how many more teams there are. The rushing is 107.7 yards per game. That's 39th. That's pretty good. And the scoring is 32.7 points per game. That's 118th. Well, I'm going to tell you a sad story. The only reason why the rushing is 107.7 yards per game and why it's that low is because you could just pass the ball against Notre Dame and they can't stop you. This team has to convert and, like you said, apply pressure to try to get them to turn over the ball, do something. This defense is not playing like the old Notre Dame defense. The offense, I'm not worried about their offense either. The Razorbacks are going to have a really good offense, as we alluded to earlier. You're right. Arizona. The Arkansas is going to have about 15 players are going to come out, and I think after the first quarter, we should have a good idea of how well either Notre Dame is prepared to play defense or, oh shoot, here we go again. Here comes another air raid.
And the longer this game stays close, the roughly 90,000 seat stadium in Arkansas is going to be loud as all get out. So if Notre Dame could get some stops early and get a lead, it would really help them as the game progresses. But I guess we'll find out on ABC on Saturday.
Yes, we will. Well, there's another game that we need to cover in the Midwest, and that's going to be the Indiana Hoosiers playing against Iowa. This is going to be 3:30 on Peacock. Now, before I let Nick dive into it, one of the interesting facts, or well, I should say, Iowa before the Cyhawk, I had high hopes for them this season, but now watching what Indiana did to Illinois, even if Iowa somehow pulled out a miracle to win the Cyhawk, I would be absolutely terrified for my pick, Iowa, to be playing this game. Nick, give us some insight.
So everyone's high on my Hoosiers right now after the beatdown they put on Illinois last week, but The Hoosiers better be ready for an inhospitable welcome at Kinnick Stadium this weekend. The Hawkeyes plan to drag you into a fist fight in the trenches, Indiana, and whether you want it or not, you're going to get it. This Iowa offensive line is, on any metric, the best or one of the top 5 offensive lines in the country. Pro Football Focus has 4 of their starting offensive linemen as 4 of the top 10 in the country or something like that, which, again, not to get too much into the nerd metrics from Pro Football Focus, but it is noteworthy to say that 4 of your offensive linemen are the highest graded out of the top 10 or whatever the case may be. Iowa's offensive line has some big Viking badass dudes on it, and they are ready for a fist fight with Indiana's front 7, which last week looked deeper and more talented than even I thought they were. The key for IU's offense or IU's defense against Iowa's offense is to rotate defensive linemen and stay fresh. And I think the Hoosiers can stand up to the Iowa running attack, which is the only attack that you, as a fan, anticipate here. Gronowski had his best passing game of the year against Rutgers last Friday night. He was 12 of 18 for 186 yards, and the passing game was more consistent and looked better than it had. If Iowa puts the ball in the air too many times against this Indiana secondary, there are going to be turnovers. They don't have the passing concepts or consistency in their overall passing game to have success throwing it. And they're not going to try to beat Indiana throwing it. They are going to try and pound you on the ground. The key for Iowa's offense is to have success with the running game, obviously, as we've said over and over throughout our coverage of the Hawkeyes this season, but also they need some special teams magic. Caden Witchin, all Big Ten kick and punt returner, had a 100-yard return for a touchdown last week. They need some special teams plays to go their way. And I will say this, Indiana's punter muffed a punt, but then picked it up and barely got it off last week against Illinois. There is a vulnerability there, and Iowa is consistently the best, if not one of the best special teams performers in the Big Ten Conference. This is a strength versus strength, though, with IU's front 7 against the offensive line from Iowa. That's honestly the thing I'm looking forward most to seeing in this game. Indiana's 2 net rushing yards allowed versus Illinois against a team that wants to run the ball and will invite that challenge is going to be epic if you like to watch big boys battle it out in the trenches. And then, we have to talk about Fernando Mendoza. He's putting up Heisman numbers. He's got 14 touchdowns and no interceptions. Indiana's running for 300 yards a game through 4 games, not just the 300 they had against Illinois last week. The Iowa defensive front is going to be their key to slowing down this Indiana offense, and I've got a matchup for you to watch. It's all Big Ten defensive tackle Aaron Graves against Indiana's interior offensive line. If there's a weakness to this Indiana offense, it's the offensive guards. The center is good. I think the tackles have been really solid. I think that Aaron Graves needs to push the pocket and needs to get penetration on running plays along with the rest of the Iowa defensive line. That will mess up Indiana's whole RPO game. Obviously, Cignetti's going to pound you with the run as long as you let him. I think that Iowa is capable of really slowing that down and muddying this up, at least for a half. I think Aaron Graves, if I'm an Iowa fan, that's the guy that needs to have the best game of his life this week against the Hoosiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm trying to incorporate a little bit of analytics and some numbers behind it. Nick, you hit everything on the head. It's looking like 80-20 right now. Indiana's going to be coming in hot. They're facing their hands, honestly. We've previewed their schedule. We know what's happening. I think if Indiana can go on the road and beat Iowa, I think that'd be great. Francisco Mendoza, the Heisman Watch finalist. How do you like that sound, Nick?
Fernando Mendoza might be a Heisman finalist. Let's say this also. Indiana's got to be more disciplined with their gap discipline and account for QB run from Gronowski. I think that's a big part of this. Keys to victory for the Hoosiers. Iowa's got to dominate the entire interior line of scrimmage. But my bet is Indiana minus 7.5, and I've got the over 48.5. I think that Iowa is going to slow Indiana down for a while offensively, but Indiana is going to figure out a way to put points on the board, partially because the Iowa secondary has produced maybe one interception this year and is not really living up to the standard that they're used to in Iowa City.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after watching Indiana blow out expectations against Illinois, I know IU's on the road, but I do think they can cover minus 7.5, and I also do think the over is going to hit. And that's in my opinion because I just feel like we were talking about this last week, and I told you a couple times before that went through, and you're like, don't do it. I just knew Indiana was holding back. They were like a teenager with pent up anger ever since they lost to Notre Dame, and they were like, "We got a ranked opponent in front of us." And Sig's like, "Let me put on my Sig real quick and let me go put a whoop ass on a team." This is the redhead revenge game that he's just going through the Big Ten and just beating up everybody. Big Ten on notice.
Indiana's got to take care of the football, though, or this is going to go down to the wire. The problem for Iowa, just like we said when we covered the Cyhawk Trophy game, is Iowa's margin for error without having an innovative passing game is not very high. They have to be perfect. They have to control the clock. They have to run the ball for X amount of yards. And, without creating turnovers and big special teams plays, it's just hard for Iowa to get a lead and maintain it. But even as an IU fan, I wish the Hawkeyes luck moving forward in the future. Some of our best fans are our Iowa fans. It'll be a fun game on Saturday. It's just too bad somebody has to lose.
Yep, absolutely. Well, before we get to the premier fight, we have one more major fight we got to cover, and that's Bama going to Georgia, a 17 versus 5. This one is also going to have big implications for the SEC. This game is going to be at 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time. You can find it on ABC. The other game the game you will be watching, I should say, is going to be obviously the Oregon versus Penn State. But let's stay on track here. Alabama versus Georgia.
Gunnar Stockton has been terrific since he's taken over at QB for the Bulldogs. So good that they ran old boy off to Miami, apparently. I think that Gunnar Stockton's a baller. I think he's good in the run and the pass. Clutch touchdown last their timeout against Tennessee. Alabama has been bad on the road since Kalen DeBoer got there, like really, really bad. So I do think that Kirby Smart breaks his air quotes Alabama curse here, if he has such a thing. They did beat him in the national championship game, I believe, at one point. Maybe in the SEC championship game, too. I don't trust Alabama on the road. They're getting 3 points. I'm not going to place a bet on this game because the SEC has turned into a crapshoot, Wild West shit show. But if I had to pick somebody, I'm picking Georgia because I just don't trust Bama on the road. And I do think Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in the country. Bama's been weak against the run game. Their offensive run game's been weak. They were even weak against Wisconsin. The one bright note in Wisconsin's season has been their rushing defense, to give Bama some credit. But Alabama didn't even run the ball well against Wisconsin. I don't see them running the ball well against Georgia. I feel like they're going to put their quarterback in some difficult situations. I do think Ty Simpson's a good player, but I got Georgia.
Yeah, I also do have Georgia too. That defense is stellar. Kirby Smart is smart. I think Gunnar Stockton is going to show off his guns and throw it very well against them. Again, I'm just a cautious man, especially with my betting. Anytime you got two teams in the SEC banging heads, you never know where it's going to go. I honestly, though, I think they're going to cover the over 52.5 because this is my thinking here. Alabama's going to try to put up a lot of points, and they have the tools to put up points. Georgia can too. At least they can score 3 touchdowns each against each other. but then Georgia's going to try to really make it a staple game. I think there's a team. They're in the Midwest. They're a red team. They have an I and a U, and they've really tried to do this thing where they prove that you have to blow out other teams in your conference. I don't know. Is that a new trend? So now every time I see two teams that are going to throw haymakers at each other, I'm almost pounding the over. So per caution, I'm hitting the over a lot. We'll see how many times I can hit. Do I keep my pirate sword, or do I have to turn it in? We're going to find out, aren't we, Nick?
52.5. That's the over-under.
52.5. Oh, defense can score too, Nick, so just FYI.
Touche.
And special teams.
And special teams, D'Angelo Pons in the Illinois game.
So it's not just going to come down to Gunner. What am I, from the South? Gunner Stockton. Well, Nick, I think it's about time to head over to good old Pennsylvania, where we need to go head over to Beaver Stadium. Is it time, Nick?
It's time. So Oregon travels to Happy Valley for a Big Ten championship rematch. What's different and what's new with these Big Ten heavyweights? And what's stayed the same? So for Oregon, you got a new quarterback in Dante Moore, who's looked fantastic this year. His QB efficiency ratings by any mathletic metric you could look up have been really, really solid. He had the benefit after being a starter at UCLA of coming to Oregon last year and sitting behind a good quarterback and learning the system for a year. So I think that's huge for Oregon. I also think that Oregon going on the road to Penn State, it's a whiteout. Everybody's talking about Penn State's home field advantage, which is not to be sneezed at. But Dan Lanning is the best coach in the country at preparing teams for road games. He, if you haven't seen it, he recreates their chants and the crowd noise and the stadium noise and all these things and plays it during practice. It's really something to behold. We might repost that on social media from last year if we can find it. Also, 5-star wide receiver Decoria Moore has met and exceeded any expectations I had after Oregon's number one receiver went down with a knee injury in the preseason. This Oregon offense is clicking on all cylinders. So what's the same and what's different with Penn State's defense? Well, they got denied Denny Sutton and Zane Durant back on the defensive line. They did lose some badasses from last year, but they got some back. They found some new ones that were coming up with all the very highly touted recruits they have on the defensive line. Linebackers Dominic DeLuca and Tony Rojas are good against the run and the pass, but I think this might be the best pass coverage linebacker group in the country for the Nittany Lions. These guys, they kind of just do it all. And you have an All-American cornerback in A.J. Harris and Zachy Wheatley at safety. This Penn State defense is pretty freaking badass. It's just sad they haven't played anybody yet. I personally think their strength of schedule in the pre-conference was worse than Indiana's. They've got a slew of new, younger guys coming up that have been suffocating against the smaller schools they've been playing, and I think that their defense is going to be really good all year. Here's a problem for Penn State's offense. Drew Aller has not, let's not put it all on Drew Aller. The Penn State passing game against weaker competition leading up to this game against Oregon has not shown any progression since last year when they played Notre Dame and they completed 0 passes to wide receivers. And I was at the Oregon-Penn State game in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis, right down the street from my house. And they completed a handful of passes to wide receivers in that game, but they were all on play designs. I've watched the game 4 times now. They were all on play designs where they schemed a receiver open. So against a really, really good secondary from Oregon, do I trust Penn State's wide receivers to produce? Because look, things different, things that stayed the same. Well, one thing that's different is Tyler Warren's playing for the Indianapolis Colts now. He's not playing for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And he was such a linchpin, not only of their passing game, he was a great blocker, and they had all these wildcat plays and trick plays they could run with him to keep you off balance while they were busy not finding ways to get the ball to their wide receivers. So obviously you've got Singleton and Allen, a great running back group. I'm afraid this Penn State offense is going to be too predictable against an Oregon Duck defense that flies around, is fast and physical at the point of attack. Bryce Betcher at linebacker got drafted by the Houston Astros recently. And he's like, I think I'm going to come back and tackle some guys in the Big Ten. Bryce Betcher is an All-American player in my book. He's also a Eugene, Oregon kid. He's the ultimate hometown hero. It's hard not to like this guy. Oregon's got 6 starters returning on defense, including Mateo Ugalele and Bryce Betcher that I just talked about. And they have the massive additions. Well, one literally massive addition in Bear Alexander, who I think started at Georgia, played at USC last year. He's a 300-pound run stuffer up front on the defensive line that nobody wants to tussle with. And Dylan Thieneman from Purdue is one of the most underrated and this year unnoticed players in the country. This guy plays the run and the pass. He's an absolute ball hawk, and he will knock your lights out in the run game if you go his way. I just think that my question about Penn State was, are they going to improve or change something in the passing game to answer questions from last year? And without Tyler Warren against this Oregon defense that is very highly talented and very physical up front, and Dan Lanning being a great road coach, a real road dog, if you want to put it that way, I've got Oregon plus 3.5 on the road. What do you think, Drew?
Well, not so fast, my friend. This is where the two great heads collide. What shoes are you wearing right now?
My Duck shoes.
Is there a swoosh on them?
My Duck shoes.
I mean,
they got little flippers on them.
You got little waddles, got a little swoosh on them?
Quack, quack, quack.
The quack attack, listen, I'll say this much, all right? I understand Dan Lanning. Okay, first off, this is cool, right? But I'm just drawing you up a picture of what I'm thinking how it's going to go. How Nick thinks it's going to go, Dan Lanning replicated how it's going to be at that whiteout, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's cool. I get it, right? I'll say this, though, right? How many military exercises can we do before you actually get into the trenches? That's my question. When you step onto that field in Happy Valley, is it going to be the same as we predicted in the practice, right? If you get scared, you just turn off the noise. You can't turn off the noise down in Happy Valley. That's not going to be a Happy Valley soon. I will say this about Penn State. They have this guy, right? Not Matt Patricia. That's at Ohio State. They have Knowles, the defensive coordinator, who destroyed Oregon last year in the college football playoffs. I think that now with these tools that they have in place, okay, how many times can we go to the Vegas board and play roulette and it hits black every time? Notre Dame's lost 2 games to open the season. That's not shocking. Their defense is shocking. Bayou Brian winning big road games or just big games in general this year, shocking. You know what also is shocking? Penn State finally wins a big one. Mark it down in your calendars. I got Penn State's money line.
So Penn State's, okay, Oregon's ranked number 6, not in the top 5, but James Franklin's 0-19 against top 5 teams. This Oregon team certainly has a top 5 roster, in my opinion, has executed well on offense. I'll take that bet, Drew.
Exactly. You know, sometimes when we roll dice, you know, you can tell me statistically that you need to roll a 4 and a 3, and that's what we're going to roll, and I roll 4s and 4s. But we're going to see that 4, 3, 7s right here, baby. We're going to see it on the dice table, all right? We're going to see. This is a good one where we can go back and forth on. Well, while we're at the gambling table, let's pick up those dice. Do you want to roll around and give us your picks that you have for this week at the gambling corner?
I got Indiana minus 9, 7.5 on the road. I got Indiana, Iowa over. I didn't write them down, Drew. It's my fault. Let's see.
It's all right.
I had Minnesota if Darius Taylor plays, which I'm actually not going to bet on that one. Don't run that one. Let's see. Ohio State, Washington, no bet.
I got Washington spread plus 8.5. I'm also going to pound the Georgia, Alabama over. Penn State money line, which we just covered. We also have the Penn State, Oregon. I'm going to go points here. Even though I backed up Knowles, I think it's going to be a dog fight. This is a 2 matchup set. They're going to be a lot of points. That's what's great about college football. Points, 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 points. It's not like the NFL where there's no points sometimes. I got LSU money line. I'm backing up Bayou Brian. This is probably a thing I'm going to be kicking and screaming and throwing my phone when this is the only leg that doesn't hit. Maybe I get a ghost leg by DraftKings. That's very popular. I got Indiana spread because they're the Grim Reaper of the Big Ten right now, and they're taking everyone's souls. While they're doing that, they're not also leaving points at home. They're taking them everywhere, even on the road with them. And I got the over in that game as well, Nick. How about that? That's going to be intense.
This is the best weekend of Big Ten football that we've had so far, and probably of the whole season, all things considered. If there's a day to be home on Saturday watching football, this is it. Someone called me and asked me if I wanted to make some money Saturday evening, and I said, absolutely not. I will be parked on the couch with multiple TVs running.
Yeah, probably have some Yingling Oktoberfest. You guys to get some Boston. Gotta get your Oktoberfest. We're rapidly approaching the end of Oktoberfest. For many of you that don't know that, Oktoberfest actually starts in September. It's the festival of October. You're celebrating to the beginning of October. So we only have a few more days until October actually begins. Just so people understand that sometimes for a long time, even I was confused why they call it Oktoberfest when we start in September. That's what it is. It's basically like Drewapalooza for all our people out there that celebrated with us this year.
It's so they can sell more beer, I think. That's why I saw Christmas decorations at Costco the other day.
Now we're going to talk about the Midwest. This is how Midwest Goodbye starts. I had a Midwest Goodbye the other day where I'm like, I'm going to go. And then somebody said something and then I couldn't leave. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for sure now. And that was the second Midwest Goodbye. And the Midwest Goodbye keeps going. One thing that we don't do around here is an Irish Goodbye where I just hang up on Nick. You won't see that. We'll at least chat and talk about it.
Not live
Just
on
to
the
get
air
that-
anyway.
Yeah. A Midwest Goodbye and an Irish Goodbye are two separate. An Irish Goodbye is me just hanging up the podcast and stopping right there, and it is what it is. A Midwest Goodbye is where we keep going back and forth and just talk about random thoughts we had about the podcast and just things that you guys want to hear.
My great Michigan insider friend who I played football with in high school taught me the art of the Irish Goodbye. So you go out, people are having a good time, their drinks are flowing, people are watching football. Then you realize you want to leave, but you don't want to do the Midwest Goodbye, which could last another 45 minutes. So you just quietly pay your tab and leave. That's a definite weapon you want to have in your arsenal when you're hanging out with a bunch of drunk people.
Absolutely. And you always want to drive sober or you're going to get pulled over. Now I sound like a DUI ad.
Well,
Tick it or click it.
It's a cop.
Yeah. I mean, in the Midwest, we also like pot roast. That's another fun thing. We might have to do a food segment coming up. Now that we're getting to the Big Ten, we also want to cover what's on your tailgate. If you made it this far and you still stayed with our Midwest Goodbye, now you're in a conversation with us, and now you have to share us what foods you like to eat at your tailgate. Nick is making a face. Nick is funny because when we go down there, the first thing you do is you buy Coors, because that's how you say at Midwest hello, is you bring beer. And then we tend to make chicken nuggets. Well, not chicken nuggets, like chicken popcorn.
Oh my gosh. I cook all the time, and then you come on here and act like I feed you chicken nuggets when you come to my house?
Okay, well, if anything, they're the pristine dino nuggets, so they're high-quality nuggets, regardless of
All the
chicken.
times I've made street taco meat with peppers and onions and beans, and see how it is. Chicken
Midwest
nuggets.
nachos.
Chicken nuggets from here on out.
If you guys want to see Nick cook during the Midwest Blitz, just put in the comments. We'll take it because his kitchen's right in the background.
There's my kitchen.
Mine's a floating room I'm in that I keep hovering through because my green screen can't connect, which is an ongoing issue we have in the Midwest Blitz. But first year problems, freshman year, rookie season year problems. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yeah, I'm gonna go take my blood pressure medicine down.
All right. Well, with that being said, that is a medical goodbye. That is not a Midwest goodbye. So this is Coach Drew signing off. See you guys later.
See you guys.
We had to make sure that Nick was okay because we didn't see him sign off. We had to make sure if we had to keep it going a little longer. He said he had to check his blood pressure pills, so we want to make sure he lived. All right, guys. See you later. Bye.